Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Amityville Union Free School District Board of Education combined meeting, February 26, 2025. The meeting is being called to order at 5:35 p.m. Currently in attendance at the meeting is myself, President Ms. Johnson, First Vice President Carol Seahawks, Second Vice President Megan Messman, Superintendent Dr. Gina Talbot, Trustees Leslie Kretz, Caroline Fanning, and Winnie Canistro. It is anticipated that Trustee Chris Nairn should be arriving by 5:40, as well as our legal counsel, John Sheenan. And in terms of Ms. Buatsi, Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operation, Dr. Wade, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, and Ms. Mary Stevens, the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction. They will join executive session at a later time this evening. At this point in time, which is 5:36, can I have a motion to go into executive session for advice from counsel and particular person's employment history?
So, second.
Carol Seahawk is first.
Is council expected?
Yes, I said council will be here roughly about 5:40.
Thank
And Leslie Kretz second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 6-0. It's anticipated that we'll resume the open session at 7:30.
Fine meeting, February 26, 2025. We are resuming open now at 7:50. The Board of Education met for executive session for advice from counsel and particular person's employment history. At this point in time, please note the exits to where you're seated, and please silence your cell phone, and please join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance. At this point in time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Dr. Talbot.
So good evening to everyone and thank you for. How about that? How do we stop this beautiful video? Well, let's just enjoy it. Let's enjoy it. Great. Yes. Wow. Woo, woo. Yes. How exciting is this? That's great, isn't it? So under the coaching leadership of head coach Meredith Cohen and her exemplary coaching staff, tonight we have the incredible honor of celebrating our varsity game day cheerleading team and their outstanding achievements. This season, our cheerleaders set ambitious goals and they didn't just meet them, they exceeded them. They qualified for the Suffolk County Championships this fall and then made history by earning a spot in the national championship in Orlando, Florida. But they didn't stop there. Just a few weeks ago in Orlando, this team delivered an incredible semifinal performance that propelled them into the finals where they finished an astonishing ninth in the nation. To our 14 talented athletes and our phenomenal coaching staff, your dedication, your passion, and your relentless pursuit of excellence has made all of us Amityville proud. And so at this time, let's receive them as we will give them a round of applause as they receive their acknowledgement from the Board of Education on this evening. You. All right, I want to look at them. We'll see them when they come around. So congratulations to our 11th grade back spot flyer, Miss Anaya Ellis. If you would come forward when your name is called. Congratulations to 11th grade back spot, Brianna Gooden. Our 11th grade base, Miss Kamaya Frost. Now stay here once you get your certificate because you know we got to get a group shot. 11th grade base, Miss Sage Stevens. 11th grade back spot, Kayla Gates. 10th grade back spot, Jack Scott. 10th grade base, Ana Maria Gomez. 10th grade base, Alicia Castro. 10th grade base, Naomi Austin. 10th grade flyer, Ada Fanning Holmes. 10th grade flyer, Jenalee Sivadonis. 9th grade flyer, Mariana Casedo. 8th grade flyer, Ella Entriago. 8th grade base, Amaya Hendricks. And starting with our middle school assistant coach, Miss Samantha Reyes. Middle school head coach, Miss Christina Romeo. Junior varsity head coach, Stacy Maranta. Varsity assistant coach, Miss Brianne Musashi. I don't want to slaughter it. Help me out, girls. Musashia. And none other, soon to be known as a legend around here, our varsity head coach, Miss Meredith Cohen. So Board of Ed, would you do the honors of coming and standing with our national champs to come and have a photo taken? It's our honor and privilege to take a picture with you on this evening. We're so very proud of our cheerleaders, and we know they will continue on an upward trajectory. And the next time I go home, I'm going to bring back my yellow stick too. Okay? And we'll share our championship sticks. I'm pleased to share some encouraging news regarding our district-wide mid-year iReady results. Across all buildings, we have seen some improvement, reflecting the hard work and dedication of our educators and student scholars. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank Ms. Mary Stevens for her leadership in this work, along with our principals, teachers, and all staff members who have contributed to this progress. Your commitment to our students' success is evident in these results. It's not where we want to be, but it's not where we were, and it's certainly in the direction of where we're going. Most importantly, I want to recognize our student scholars for their hard work and determination. We're moving upward together, and we look forward to building on this momentum as we continue throughout the year. At this time, please join me in welcoming Ms. Mary Stevens, who will give us a brief mid-year update.
Thank you, Dr. Talbert, members of the board. So as Dr. Talbert mentioned, we are pleased that our results in every building show an improvement over our fall diagnostic. These are the results from the January administration of the diagnostic. And I did just want to note, kindergarten scores are not included in this data. The kindergartners, we start them a little bit later on the diagnostic in the fall so that they get accustomed to being in school, being in kindergarten. So they're on a different testing calendar. So these are the 1 through 9 results. If you're looking here at the screen, the green, there are green stripes and a solid green. Those represent students who are at or above grade level. And the red bars on the other end, striped and solid, are students who are 2 or more levels below grade level. So the district-wide results, as you can see, show improvement for all buildings. In a few minutes, we're going to look by building about how students performed. The number of students who are performing on grade level in both reading and math has increased between the fall and winter diagnostics, and the number of students 2 or more grade levels below in both reading and math decreased between the fall and winter diagnostics. So the key metrics that we're looking at to predict how students are going to perform moving forward and ultimately how they're going to perform on state assessments are typical growth and stretch growth. The typical growth is the average growth of students at each grade and placement level. So they're being measured against students who are at their same grade level and in the same placement level, which would be one of those 5 from that first screen. The stretch growth is the growth recommended that would put students who placed below grade level on a path to proficiency and students who placed on grade level on a path toward advanced proficiency. So in these areas, we did see achievements that already in this January assessment, 44% of students have met their typical growth for the year. 13% have met their stretch growth. And in math, 30% of students met their typical growth and 9% of students have met their stretch growth. The areas where we see that we need improvement, students are broken down into groups based on the percent of progress they've made toward those growth goals. So the groups are 19% or less, and then 20 to 39, 40 to 59, 60 to 79, 80 to 99, and then of course students who've already met their growth. So we're looking for improvement for the groups of students who were 19% or less in their progress toward the growth goal. So 33% of our students have made 19% or less progress toward the typical growth in reading, and 40%, 19% or less in the stretch growth. In math, 29% of students have made 19% or less progress toward that typical goal, and 34% of students have made 19% or less progress toward the stretch growth. So we do recognize that students across the board made improvements, but we're concerned about these groups of students who are making progress at a slower rate. So that's the area we're identifying where students need improvement and we have to target our focus. These are the results for students at placement level. So as opposed to the percentages, these are actual numbers of students. We broke them down by building and in those 5 placement areas. The first number in each box is the number of students who scored at that level in the fall. And the second number is the number of students who scored at that level in the winter section. So as we looked at it for the district-wide, we're looking at it in the same way that students in those 2 levels of being on grade level or even moving toward above grade level, we saw increases in the number of students at those levels in all 3 buildings. And then 1 grade level below was the yellow color. So those, we also saw improvement in those areas, but more importantly, fewer students are scoring below grade level 2 or 3 grade levels below. And for math, we're looking at the same type of results. We are seeing more students scoring in those above grade level, on or above grade level, and fewer students in the 2 or 3 plus below grade level. So again, you're looking at the fall number being the first number and the spring number being the second. So in looking at what we did to see this improvement, based on our principals reviewed the data that we received at the end of the school year from last year and set their goals for this school year. They came up with action plans after they received the data from the fall. They did data reviews so that they could make sure that their goals were still aligned with where we needed to go. We do continuous data reviews as students are working on the iReady program to make sure that we're on the right track. We made sure there was focused professional development on vocabulary acquisition. That was one of the areas where we saw students were struggling. We had professional developments in math, looking at ways that we could improve fluency. We also looked at effective co-teaching models, so ways that students who were in ICT models or ENL cohorts with co-teachers, that we could maximize the support we were providing for those students. We looked at instructional shifts towards small group instruction and deeper questioning techniques. And again, as I mentioned, focusing on math fact fluency and standards-based lessons. Our transition to the Reveal program and focusing on standards-based math instruction has really helped in that area as well. At Northwest, we are piloting the Hegarty program at the first grade level for phonemic awareness. We are providing a double dose of foundations to our language learners. It's important that they develop an understanding of sounds and phonemic awareness so that we can begin to provide them additional support in reading. And then celebrating our achievements, the hard work of our principals and our staff and our students. Teachers speak with students about where they are on the continuum and talk about what it means when they reach the next level. So celebrating those successes. Some of the buildings have boards up where they recognize students who are working independently and celebrate the achievements that they're making and the gains they're making in reading and math. And then finally, our action plan now moving forward. We will continue with professional development provided by iReady and our building administrators, reviewing comparative data at a building level, a class level, and a student level to make sure that we are reaching all of our targets. Using that data to target the students who are not on track to make typical growth, as I showed in the previous slide. Using the individualized learning plans that do come with the iReady program to support those learners, holding regular data meetings to plan for instruction and continue to celebrate the work we're doing. We look forward to returning to you in the spring with even better results. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Does anyone have a question or anything before we move forward?
I just have a question. Ms. Stevens, how many reading recovery teachers do we have in Northwest?
I believe there are three.
Three? Okay, and how many
I
reading
just wanted-
teachers?
I also wanted to clarify, they don't do reading recovery for their full load. They are 3 reading recovery trained teachers
Okay,
who have some caseload.
and they're using level literacy intervention?
We are using LLI,
Okay,
yes,
and foundations as well.
correct.
Are we analyzing the question stems to find out exactly where the deficits are in comprehension and
definitely-
aligning curriculum accordingly?
Most definitely.
Okay, thank
And then
you.
we organize groups accordingly as well.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other, Leslie?
I just want to made a comment. Thank you for this presentation. Also, it's so nice to see growth and the positive change, and I thank you for that.
Yes. Hard work.
Go ahead, Doctor, go ahead. Oh, you have a question? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm always excited when we talk about academics, right? That's why we're here. I'm happy to see growth too, the progress. I guess the concern that I keep seeing is the drop off from Northwest into Pam's and then from Pam's into the middle school. How are we addressing that big drop off? Like, it's obviously noticeable. And if it's continuing, how are we gonna try to be proactive in that?
So the work we're doing this year to analyze the data is going to help with that. We're also planning some summer programs so that those grade levels that are transitioning to other buildings will have support in that area. But the data teams that we put together to really look at specifically, we can really drill down on individual students about where they're struggling. And we're expecting to see tremendous growth for these students.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions before we move forward? Go ahead, Dr. Sally.
Thank you once again, and good evening to everyone. Before we begin tonight's transportation update, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the extensive research that has gone into understanding the history and the evolution of transportation in the Amityville School District. Over the past several weeks, we have started initial research on this topic, and I want to extend my sincere appreciation to our Coordinator of Transportation, Mr. Nate Spence, for his dedication to this effort. Nate has spent countless hours reviewing historical records and combing through old Board of Education minutes to piece together valuable data that helps inform where we stand today. We are certainly looking to see how we can digitize much of this information moving forward. So far, we have examined records dating back to 1955 through 1972, uncovering key moments that shaped our district's transportation arrangements to this date. This historical perspective is critical as we assess our current transportation policies and explore potential improvements. Understanding where we've been helps us make informed decisions about where we need to go. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Spence to share his findings and provide an update on where we stand today with transportation.
Okay, everybody. Thank you for having me so that way I could try to explain some of this information to you. As Dr. Talbert said, we were researching the agenda books from 1955, and I was able to make it to 1972. The first moment that I found where the Board of Education and the community were speaking about the change in mileage was in 1962. And if we look at the actual document, it says that they were currently doing that. So it was currently in effect. They were doing under the SED required mileage, which is what brought about this proposition number 2 at the standard budget vote. Unfortunately, that was defeated. And then in June of 1962, they put a separate proposition for vote for the exact same thing, for the mileage of 1.5 miles for secondary school and 1 mile for K-8. That was approved and it was passed by that proposition. Moving forward in 1964, the board at that time further stated that they wanted the opportunity, should there be any unsafe zones within the school district, that they're able to provide transportation charged to the district if there were said unsafe zones. That was passed 6 yes and 1 no. Moving further forward, 1968, there was a little bit of back and forth and the community wanted this to go back to vote again. It went to vote in May of 1968 and it was passed. And that basically is what I was able to find up to 1972. And just to review with everybody, our current mileages are pre-K to 2nd grade, we do 1/2 mile. 3 to 5, we do 1 mile. 6 to 12, we do 1.5 miles. The NYSED minimums are K to 8, 2 miles, and 9 to 12, 3 miles. So we used the TransFinder software that we upgraded in December to drill down the data. So here we're looking at the high school. If you look at the map on the left, this is what we currently provide for transportation. So that way you can understand it. The blue dots are students that are eligible for transportation. Now, you may see some blue dots that are closer than the 1.5 miles. Those are special needs students. The map on the right is what would happen if we went with the SED minimum 3-mile plan. Basically, nobody at the high school would receive a vehicle unless they have it in their IEP or a special need request. Talking about the middle school, you can see where the magenta dot is in the center. That's where the middle school is located. We currently do the transportation for the students in the areas of the blue dot. The orange people are walkers. If we look over at the right-hand side, you'll see that we reduce basically all of the transportation at the top of the district with some remaining at the bottom. For Park Avenue Intermediate School, again, the left is what we currently provide. The blue dots are students that receive transportation. The orange are walkers. And again, on the right-hand side, if we were to reduce it to the state minimums, the orange are the students that would be walking to school. Talking about Northwest, we currently use the half-mile plan there. Again, the magenta square is where the building is located, and only the orange people are the walkers. The blue dots are students that receive transportation. And the right side is what it would look like if we went with the state minimums. And lastly, Northeast. Again, blue dots are students that get transportation. Yellow people are those students that walk. And the magenta square is the building location. And again, you do see some students that are within the walker mileage on the right-hand side because they're students that have IEP requirements. So that's what we would be looking at if we went with the state minimums. We have been taking bus counts starting in October. We did a few weeks in October, a few weeks in December, and I'm planning on doing a few weeks moving forward. What we found is we do have efficiencies to be able to combine some things. The thing with reducing buses is we also have to keep in mind the traffic in areas and how we get there. The other logistical item is a lot of our school buildings get out at very similar times. So we have to use our buses accordingly to the resources that we're able to use at that time. So again, there are areas where we can reduce this. It just has to be mindful and done with the cooperation of the contractor. And I have already had some conversations with them about a month ago, talking about our plan to implement these student counts to show how we can reduce some runs with the new RFP coming up with the percentage increase that we're possibly looking at. Another thing that we can do that's currently not set up in our school district is we can do a child safety zone audit. And basically what the child safety zone audit says is if a student is, if their most direct walking route to school traverses a hazardous zone, a certain amount of points can be delineated by the area. So if it has sidewalks, if it has a railroad crossing, if it has a high speed limit, for example, Sunrise Highway is 45 and 55 miles per hour through our community. So that would give it a high value of points. When we can get these child safety zones implemented, there's two ways we can do it. We can have an organization come in and do it for us, or we can complete it ourselves. And I've already reached out to Eastern Suffolk BOCES. They do that program, and they have done it for other school districts in the past. But we also have the capability to do it here. So if we want to save some money, that is a possibility. And again, the point system includes hazards such as highways without sidewalks or shoulders, highway intersections, railroad crossings, and a certain number of points is required for a child safety zone to be authorized. When a child safety zone is authorized, we get a higher amount of state aid that we wouldn't normally qualify for in areas that are under 1.5 miles. So this is something that we are looking to move forward with before the end of the school year so we can move into the next school year and hopefully have some child safety zones set up to reduce the amount of transportation we're paying for in-house and get some extra state aid. And as a reminder, humility has never grown by creating barriers. We grow when we build bridges together.
Thank you. Just a question about the child safety zone. You explained it very clearly. How long would it take for this assessment to occur if it was done internally?
If we had BOCES do it, it could be a matter of a few months. And ideally, with everything else that we have going on in the transportation department, that is state aidable, the study for the child safety zone. So it would be a quite marginal cost if we had BOCES come in and do it. And they
Okay.
did say they could get it done within about 2 months.
All right, so it would potentially be done before the budget vote, right? And because just some might, when we look in our district, and it'll be interesting, this is just, as a board, we have to discuss it and then make a decision. But there's a number of areas within our district where there are kids who have to walk. And I'll just take to the middle school, and there's some students who live close to Southern State Parkway, right there on County Line Road. So you think about that road that they have to travel, get across County Line, then get down to Broadway, and then walk that entire distance, and even coming from Merrick Road in East Massapequa. So it'll be interesting to see what the potential points we could get, and if we were able to get some points, if we were able to get some additional some aid, that would be very good. So that was just one thing. And thank you for the presentation, because looking at the blue and the orange dots, it really makes it quite powerful to see that if we went to the SED requirements, we basically would not be busing any students to our schools, number one. And then I look at a potential challenge, because if they don't get bused to come to school, they may not come to school. So it will indirectly impact us, because students would not be here. And so
And we wouldn't get the aid.
and we wouldn't get the aid. So it's very powerful. It's very powerful to just take a look at, and to also see that it's been in place really since 1968 that we had this mileage in place. And I reflected back when I graduated, and that was 79. And I knew that at that time, I couldn't get transportation to the high school, that I had to walk because I was under that mileage. So thank you for the presentation. Megan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. You did our public school system. There are private schools that we bus to also, up to 15 miles.
That is correct.
Oh, do we do any busing beyond 15 miles other than our special needs schools?
There are a few that should be cut, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And just
Then we can
Megan,
discuss that.
beforehand,
Yes.
just very quickly, I'm sorry. So this not only impacts our school district, Amityville, but also like St. Martin's School as well.
Yes, that is correct. Basically, nobody at St. Martin's would, I shouldn't say nobody. I believe it cut it back to about 20 students being eligible. But that's going off what I remember. It might be a little
Okay.
bit more or a little bit less, but it's quite significant.
Right, thank you. Go ahead, Megan.
Thank you. The slide that you show the student counts per bus, what's the point of reference? How many students are typically on the bus? Like, how many are you planning to be on the bus in regards to how many actually ride the bus?
So for efficiency, in my experience, we have been told to create an efficient route, you should overstate the amount of students that are on board. because a lot of these routes, the buses appear to be maxed out. However, they don't have the amount of riders that show the amount of students on board. You follow? So essentially, we may have a bus that has 50 students assigned, but only 25 or 22 of them are riding because they're getting other transportation or they're walking in.
Right, okay. Okay. So your recommendation at this point is to do the safety, child safety zones.
I would highly suggest exploring child safety zones. And in the next 2 months, it is my priority to drill down in our new software with multiple situations and see how that's going to affect the bus count for next school year.
Right,
And as I said, I'm certain we can reduce a few things. I just don't want to overstate what we can reduce without being mindful and then reducing too much and then having to give back.
right, okay. And I just, one more, this is we're looking at a 6-year contract with a 30% increase in cost. Is that correct?
It's a 5-year.
A 5-year.
Up to a 5-year, yes.
And you think it could be up to 30% increase in cost?
Based on the data that I've collected from districts in our surrounding areas, that's what they're looking at, between 20 to over 30%. And
Okay,
it's COVID, it's everything that has affected the busing industry. It's the electric bus mandate, the drivers, they want more pay. Everybody wants more pay right now. So
yeah,
if EBT can't keep drivers because they give us a contract extension and they can't pay them more, then we have a opportunity to get a lack of service that we don't really need.
I just want to ask a question that you weren't here at the last meeting. Would it make sense to look at a shorter duration contract? Because the bus company is packing in a lot of conservatism, I would imagine, in their contract, as they have to project out what are their costs in 5 years. So have you considered the idea of a shorter contract?
So what happened with the last contract term is they gave us the increase for the first year. And then every year after that, they stated what the increase would be. And it was either between 2.5 to 4%. And what you see is if you go with a lower contract year amount,
Right.
they're going to charge you a greater first year amount because they're trying to recoup the program costs for the extension of the full contract. You follow?
Maybe.
For the shorter contracts, what happened is that then they start all over again because
Okay,
yes, that's what happens.
Okay.
Because they are restricted to CPI after the first year.
so.
That's the
okay, so you're saying you would
2.5%
still-
he's talking
The
about.
5-year contract is still
Yes.
the way to go.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just, Caroline is going to go next, but just one quick question. When you say 30%, is that over the 5-year period or 30%?
That's the first year and then an incremental increase every year after that.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Well, that's a good segue into my question. And, for the benefit of the audience, this is coming up because we do have to sign a new contract and we're preparing to go out to RFP and we need to understand what does the RFP include. My understanding, Mr. Spence, in the first year alone, it's going to be potentially a $3 million increase.
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay. So thank you. I have several questions. First, when you mention all the routes, there are multiple routes in the afternoon, correct? For example, there's dismissal at all the buildings, primary dismissal, but then at the secondary level, there's secondary
After
route.
school, yes,
Like,
exactly.
how many, so are those being considered in this? And how full, empty are those buses?
It's something that we've been looking at a piecemeal basis to see how we can reduce things. There are certain items that are included with the daily hourly route that we get hourly rate that we get charged for the bus.
Like you're gonna get it anyway, so you might as well just give the benefit for the kids who are
Exactly,
staying late
yes.
for extra help.
That is
Okay,
correct.
that does make sense to me, but because sometimes I see a bus, it seems like it's mostly empty and I think, what a waste, but if you're already paying for it, maybe it's an environmental waste, but it's not a financial waste to the district, so.
And that's why it's been so important to me to get actual student counts over a good amount of time.
Mhm.
So that way we know the actual number over a good span of a few months, what's actually using the bus. So that way we know if we reduce a certain amount, we can schedule probably 75 or 80 students, being that the bus holds 66, and fit 40 or 50 on instead of the 20 to 30 that we're getting.
Okay,
And I think that that's a good way to start reducing.
okay. Another question, and this is just to clarify, an email exchange. The students that are attending St. Martin's, they're beholden to the same mileage restrictions as other kids in the district, correct?
That is what is supposed to happen. Last year, when I first started in July, we had talked about doing this. And then we sent the notification out saying, if you're X distance in this grade, you're no longer qualified for a bus. And there were
And
a
that's just to
few-
bring them into the same
exactly what
compliance
are
that the
in
public school
district.
kids
And
get.
that's what we're planning on doing for this coming school year as well.
Okay, so that will be a change that we need to prepare for.
Yes.
Okay, understood. My other question, do we currently have any, or I think we do, but maybe you can correct me, students who cross Sunrise Highway without a crossing guard?
I would have to look into that. I know that there is a crossing guard shortage. And there have been certain situations where, because they don't have enough crossing guards, we've been seeing police officers in their place. For example, the middle school, the beginning of the week was out and he was there for a few days. So I know that they're trying to fill those spots, but it's just like
There
everywhere
was a
else.
fatality last year and I've seen kids, I know kids who cross, on Bayview and that's terrifying. So,
Mhm.
the child safety audit would be wonderful. And as a short term, I guess I would just want to put a spotlight on that.
Absolutely.
My final, this isn't a question, this was an idea, because when I heard the numbers a month ago or so, that we were gonna suddenly have to come up with $3 million more. Has it ever been considered or done that, bus routes change with the season? Or one way, not another? For example, I think about my own kids, I have a middle schooler and a high schooler. Good luck getting them on the bus in the morning, or getting them to school in the morning, but in the afternoon on a beautiful day, they don't mind walking home. I could see a lot of kids not going to school if they don't get a bus, but not minding the walk home from school. Do you follow?
I absolutely do, yes.
Okay. Similarly, that walk is really nice in September, October, not so nice January, February, March, April. Does any district think about that?
Not that I've seen, no.
Very complicated, but it could save a lot of money if, I don't, no help to us now for this RFP, but I'm just putting that idea out there,
Sure,
Thank you.
no problem.
Spence, once they qualify for transportation, we are required to reserve a seat for them regardless.
So, just for Caroline, just so you know, at Sunrise Highway in Albany, there's,
Sorry, that's what I meant,
yeah,
Albany.
yeah,
you're right.
there's a crossing guard that's there. If not there, if then the person is not there, then there's always the Suffolk County Police Office, because that's the route that I always travel. Wendy, and then Leslie.
Thank you. That's a great presentation, and it was so well done that the visual really helps us, right? I'm really impressed that you looked back to 1956 or whatever it is. I'm happy to see that we had the referendum, we weren't sure, whatever, so I think that clears up a lot of things. I was going to ask about crossing guards. So we have, do you like monitor where the crossing guards are or where they're needed? Who does that check to see if we have them in all the right spots? Sunrise Highway, Southern State Parkway, 110. Who does that? Is that under transportation? No. Okay, so that's not you. Okay, I'll ask Dr. Talbert maybe after. As you said that BOCES can do this, what would be the cost? Do you know?
I believe he said about $6,000 to $10,000, but again, don't hold me to that because that's not a paper quote.
Okay, and as far as the child safety zone, is this something new or has this been around for a long time?
This has been around.
I,
And
I'm
this is
amazed
something,
by it.
this is something that Ms. Buatsi did in her past school district, if I remember correctly.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. There's so many areas that I think we would get so many points for, tons of
Yes.
points.
Yes.
So,
And growing up in the Hudson Valley,
Sunrise, 1 on 10, yeah, that's up the
most
state.
school districts up there give out a bus to everybody. So there's a plethora of child safety zones that I'm familiar with in the areas that I grew up with.
Okay, so that's great. The only thing that I would ask is if we can take a vote to okay this.
Yeah, when I get finished with everyone making comments, we can go from there. Chris or Leslie?
Just one thing you spoke about, the crossing guards. So if we take away the buses from our students, we're gonna have to increase our crossing guards. So that means the village would have to pay more overtime for police officers, I'm sure, and the county will have to pay, Nassau County and Suffolk County. So that's another, and we're having issues with getting crossing guards now, and the safety for our children are the most important thing.
And the
Ever.
logistics of how many other students would need to be picked up or dropped off at our locations that are already taxed by
Right.
pickup and drop off.
Right. Okay, so a lot to think of. Thank you. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Always happy to help.
Any other questions, Chris or Carol? So, at this point in time, Dr. Talbot, do you want to hear from the board whether or not we want to have Eastern Suffolk BOCES do this analysis?
Yes.
Right, so I'll go down. Leslie?
Just want to
Okay.
advise, so child safety zones are subject to voter approval.
So, but it would have to be on the,
It would have to be
Referendum.
on the
a
proposition.
proposition with,
Okay.
with the cost.
All right, so we'd have to make a motion to, can we just do?
I mean, that, you can do the study
can do the
without,
study.
but I just, in terms
Right.
of the timing, right? If the timing is.
Just kind of
2
speak into the
months,
mic a little bit more?
So if the timing is 2 months, it may not be sufficient to get a proposition on the ballot.
All right, so we could do this study, but it may not be able to make it to the ballot for this
Yeah,
particular year.
based upon what I'm hearing, yes.
Okay,
By that. I'm confused by that.
so, if I heard John correctly, just clarify what you're saying, John, that if the study was done and if the study showed that,
Right, so if you look at the slide
Mhm.
for the definition of a child safety zone,
Mhm.
once properly authorized by the Board of Educational Trustees and the voters of the school district.
Okay.
That's the transportation may be provided. So with respect to, you can come up with a child safety zone, you can create the points, you can create the program, but you can't implement it without approval of the voters.
Okay. And we won't have it in time for to put a referendum on the ballot.
Correct.
because it's going to take 2 months, and then we would need it, if the study goes 2 months, it has to
Right,
be,
that's March and
yes,
April.
yeah, it has to be at least 30 days prior to.
Yeah, 45 days.
Right,
Can
30,
we
45
build this
days.
into the budget then, so that we could do it for next year, and then when we have it back, we could put it on the ballot, put a referendum in time?
Dr. Talbot shaking her head, yes.
That would be great. If we could get consent to move forward with the study, then we can do some long-range planning.
So even if we do the study now, it could be utilized for next year.
Yes.
So as a board, I'll go down the line. I'm in support of doing the study now and just having it in place.
I am too.
Me too.
I don't need a motion for this, do I, John? We're just a consensus to do it,
Okay.
right? Just a consent to do the study.
Is there a resolution?
Right, so you'd still need a resolution
Right.
ultimately, once the administration brings the contract back.
Right, so right now,
Right.
we're just approving that she can go
Right, go
forward.
forward and
Nothing's gonna take
solicits,
place.
proposals for the child safety study.
So Leslie, Chris,
Yes.
Wendy,
Do we have money in the budget to cover this? Is it coming out of the 24-25 budget?
It would come out of the 24-25 budget if we were to implement it before July 1.
But for the study, if we give the approval and it can't, do we have money in the budget for it?
And we can do it because we need a whole year to study it before we put it on the ballot next year.
I just want to make
So-
sure we have money. We have money for it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Carolyn? So you have consent to move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Once again, thank you, Mr. Spence. He's going to need to depart. He has death in his family. Thank you for staying and doing your very best with us. We wish you safe travels on the road. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to move forward with the agenda at this point in time. Is there any community input on agenda items only at this time? So hold on 1 second. Let me come to the mic, but just go ahead. That's okay. Take your time.
I'm on the 3-minute clock.
Yeah, that's one.
A couple of information items.
Go ahead.
Item 3B25. What are McKinney Vento tutors?
Dr. Talbot.
Good evening. Those are students who are displaced or maybe deemed homeless students by state guidelines.
3B34, home instructors. There are 12 home instructors. What are the reasons why they are being provided instruction at home? Is it injury, illness, a suspension?
So we do have students who require instruction outside of the traditional classroom due to the reasons that you just cited. And these are teachers who provide that instruction when they're not in the traditional classroom.
Of the 12, how many are on suspension?
Of the 12,
There are 12 assignments here, 34 through 40, 45.
okay.
All home instructors. How many are because of suspension?
Okay. I'm going to ask Ms. Stevens to just explain how the program works because it's not a one-on-one home tutoring situation. And maybe that'll provide a little clarity.
So the staff members who are on the list today become part of a cadre of professionals that we use as we need them.
No, I understand that.
So they're not matched
I
up.
understand that. I'm
Okay.
familiar with home instruction. My question is how many were because of its suspension?
But they're not matched to individual students. Are you asking how many students are currently suspended? Is
Yeah.
that your question? We have under 10 at the moment, but I don't have an exact
10.
number for you. Under 10.
9. Okay, 3B46. What is STEAM Academy Administrator? STEAM.
So the STEAM Academy is science, technology, engineering.
STEM,
Right,
you mean
right,
STEM,
but we
that-
add the A for arts. And the administrator is overseeing that program.
Okay, and my last question, 3B57, Saturday Parent Empowerment Program. What is that?
So the program at Northeast is part of our UPK grant to work with parents and train them in ways that they can be empowered to be partners in their children's education.
Do we monitor the attendance?
We
And-
do.
And how is that going?
Well, it hasn't begun yet.
What hasn't done yet? And same thing with the STEM. Do we monitor how many students are attending?
We will.
You
So
will.
again, that hasn't begun yet. We're proposing these staff members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm wondering, Madam President, if you could just explain to me, I know some of the surrounding districts, like Copeg does, from K to 6, 3/4 of a mile in their busings, their routes, and 1 mile for 7 to 8, and 9th to 12th grade is just 1 mile. So most of the surrounding districts are there or even less. Are they having the same dilemma that we're having?
So when you say the situation right now, and I'll pass it to Dr. Talbot in just a minute, is that the cost of busing in general is just going up.
Okay.
So, and that's what the situation is right now. So this year, we're being hit with a larger increase in our transportation costs that we have not seen in
So
a
the
long time.
genesis of this whole argument is just being cost effective.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And last comment, varsity girls outdoor track and field head coach. Is there just one coach for the girls team?
Dr. Talbot? I think there's only one.
Believe there is only one coach for the girls' team.
And how many for the boys?
I think two.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
How many boys? I believe there are 2.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Any other questions on agenda items?
Hi, Margaret Shuff, Amityville. On the iReady presentation, it was a great presentation. Nice to see that there's improvements, but I believe it was at the end of last year in the Tide that all those numbers were presented in the Tide at the end of the year kind of thing. And it was much clearer. It was just an all or nothing thing, like K through 8 math, X amount was on or above or below. And same thing for English, or however I think it was just math and English or something like that, on the total amount of students and how many were above, on level or above or below. So the next time, I mean, can you reiterate that for as a whole? Like K through 8 is X% on or above and X% is below in math and in English or reading or ELA, however it was classified.
So that number was on the first slide, the colored graph. I'd be happy to,
You couldn't even see
I'd
the
be
numbers.
happy to show it to you later.
I'm sorry?
I'd be happy to show it to you later with the numbers,
Okay,
but yes,
so it gave the total and
Yes.
what is the percent
correct.
on or above and then below, et cetera?
Correct.
Okay,
Mhm.
so so as a whole, you can't give me those 2 numbers right now?
I can.
Thanks.
So for reading, there was a total of 30 students who were on or above grade level. 30% of students were on or above grade level and 39% below grade level. I'm sorry, 39% 2 or more grade levels below grade level, 2 or more below grade level.
Okay.
For math, it was 19% who were on or above grade level and 35% who were 2 or more grade levels below.
Okay, it is an improvement, so good, great.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to move on to the agenda. Can I have a motion for agenda items 2A1 through 2A4?
Motion. Second.
Chris Nerin is first. Megan Messon is second. Any questions regarding any of the minutes?
I do. Oh, okay, on the policy committee minutes from January 15th. 2 are going to be on tonight's agenda, but it says right above it, the following are ready to go before the board at the February 26th board meeting. I think that needs to be amended because all of these are not going on
Okay,
today's agenda. Can we just approve contingent upon correcting that?
that's fine with me.
And then there was just a typo on page 2 of 5 of January 22nd, under B. board action recommended by the board policy committee. It says net, it should say next.
I'm sorry, which,
Page 2 of 5 on the January 22nd. Under B. Do you see it?
yes.
Okay. So I guess can we,
You mean for, I'm sorry, for 2B, board action recommended by the board policy?
yeah, it says we will be provided to the legal team at, it should be next board meeting. Do
Okay.
you see that? So I'm just wondering, do we have to amend the motion that to adjust this because this has to be corrected, these minutes, John?
Or can I just say we can accept it as?
Or
as mentioned?
contingent upon, yeah.
So if it's in the document itself and the minute, the corrections have been
Identified.
stated, then they can be approved as amended.
Okay, great.
I just had one comment. We had moved towards identifying the number of people logged in from Zoom. Eileen was doing that on the minutes, and it was pretty useful. So you're indicating like the number of attendees in person, but then also to indicate like on a combined meeting, how many people are logged in by Zoom.
Yeah, and sometimes if you check with AP, we can get the numbers, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so the motion is on the table for 2A1 to 2A4, and just to add to it, for the changes that have been recommended as well. Okay. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Can I have, for agenda item 2B1 and 2, this is policies that we can vote on, or we can do it in the second reading, I think,
Isn't this the first reading?
yeah. So I just want to clarify, because I think there's still some questions. So this is a first reading, so we're not going to vote on it. So just make sure that you review the policy. If you have any recommendations to the policy committee, please provide those recommendations to the policy committee.
I just had a question. Can we just have a status of the other ones from January Policy Committee, when we'll be seeing those? Because, right, those were mentioned in the minutes that we're amending.
We'll probably have to get back to you because we cannot say as a policy committee. We have to look at it and make.
I was asking legal.
Oh,
I will review the status and get back to the board president.
Thank you.
Go
Ask
ahead.
a question?
yeah, go ahead.
In the proposed policies on the first reading, I noticed that it clearly states to have the fingerprint clearance at your own costs. I was wondering about the CPR AED training cost. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I thought I had my name. Is that gonna be at your own cost, or is that, I was just curious, is it the other one? It hasn't been, right? But it's
The
just.
question is this going to?
Does the
Oh,
district
it
provide
has to
that?
be, you're saying?
Do we,
The question is
For the
at
CPR
at the
AED,
own cost.
it should say also at your own cost,
It's at the own cost.
because the
Go ahead, Dr. Talbot.
2 bullets ahead, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the policy for volunteer athletic coach was reviewed at the policy meeting. There were some recommended changes. Those changes were forwarded to council. Council reviewed and sent back recommendations. So between our HR office and the district clerk, those recommendations have been included here on this tonight. So I believe it's in its final stage for a first reading. We can always, of course, trustee Messman, hear recommendations, but I just wanted to let you know where it was.
Okay, thank you. I just had the question because it clearly states to have the fingerprint clearance from New York State Education Department at your own cost. So I just thought of the CPR AED. I just wanted to clarify, is that at the volunteer's cost, or is that at the district's cost?
Is the CPR
It's at their
AED
own
part
cost.
of the coaching requirements, like the licensing?
Yes.
So then it would have been included when they get their coaching license. Is that correct? Is that, yeah, their coaching certification?
Yes, because one, application process, number two, in the submission of the documentation, proof of required coaching certification includes first aid, CPR, AED, DASSAW, sexual harassment training, and concussion management. along with the fingerprints, which are required at their own cost.
Right, so we can always, for the policy committee, we can always,
Review
Just
before the
clar-
second reading?
we can always clarify it and add it in if need be. So I'll just make a
Okay,
note
thank
on
you.
this. Okay. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 2C1. Can I have a motion for agenda item 2C1, please?
So moved.
Second.
Carol Seoff is first, Winnie Canestro is second. Any questions on this item?
No.
Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 7-0. For agenda item 2C1, 2C2, can I have a motion for agenda item 2C2, please?
Motion.
Second.
Actually, it's Chris Nearing and Megan Messman. So I will do each one individually, if it's okay. All those in favor of Debbie Adams from the South Huntington School District or the Western Suffolk BOCES trustee candidate?
I'm recusing myself from both. I don't have enough information.
All those in favor for Debbie Adams?
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor.
I'm good.
It's Chris, Caroline, and Megan.
I don't have any information either. Can someone provide more background?
I don't really know what we're actually voting for. I know that it's for Western Suffolk BOCES, but I don't know anything about them or what.
All right, so I have for no, for Chris, Caroline.
No, I didn't say no.
So either, so
I'm
Let me
abstaining.
Were we
time
given
out,
any
time out,
information?
excuse me, time out. So at this point in time, what's being looked at is the Western Suffolk BOCES candidates for Western Suffolk BOCES for their board. So if there's additional information that's needed, we can contact Western Suffolk BOCES to ask for additional information for the candidates. So therefore, you can make a decision about what you would like to do. So at this point in time, Carol, Leslie, and myself had said yes, and then the others are abstaining from the votes. So that's Caroline Fanning, Chris Nearin, Megan Messman, and Winnie Canestro are all abstaining from these votes. And then Carol, Lisa, and Leslie are saying yes. So what's going to happen, and just clarify with me, all those in favor will be 3, and all those abstaining would be,
Yeah, but that's not.
I have no idea.
yeah, because
Never
what
had this
happens,
situation before.
yeah, neither have I. So I'm not gonna go, I'm not gonna go back and forth on this. So what will happen is
So
that
you have 3,
3-0 and,
and that's the vote.
yep. So the vote is 3 for it and 4
My understanding
abstain.
that nomination does not move forward.
Yep, does not move forward. So 3 abstain, 4 abstain and 3 are yes. All right. All right. Can I have a motion for agenda item 2C3, please?
Motion.
Second.
Winnie Canestro, Chris Nearing. All those in favor of agenda item, any questions on agenda item 2C3? All those in favor?
You, the other
Yeah, we did.
nomination,
It
same-
failed.
Same,
Yep, 3, it was 3 yes and 4 abstain.
thank you.
So all those in favor for 2C3?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3A1, please?
Move it.
Winnie Canestro is first.
Second.
Megan Messa is second. And this information was provided to the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion for agenda items 3B1 through 3B3, please?
So moved.
Second.
Carol Seehoff, Chris Neeren. Any questions on these items? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. Can I do agenda items 3B5 down to 3B145 altogether? Or does anyone need anything done separately? So
not-
3B5 down to 3B145.
That's fine. I just have a question, but I don't need to take a separate vote.
Okay, I mean, I can do it all together and just add names in. Actually, I can do it all together. Can I do it all together? Okay. So can I have a motion for agenda items 3B5 to 3B147?
I'm gonna move it.
Second.
Winnie Ganesh was first, Carol Seehoff is second. So for agenda item 3B146. There is a resolution for that for the interim assistant superintendent for human resources. Be resolved that based upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints Dr. Bridget Waite to the temporary per diem, non-probationary, non-tenure, seniority bearing position of interim assistant superintendent for human resources effective April 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2025 pursuant to the terms and conditions of the agreement between the district and the employee, and authorize the president of the Board of Education to execute said agreement on behalf of the board. So the name that's being added to 3B46 is Dr. Bridget Waite. All right. Caroline, do you have a question?
Yeah, just with regards to the AP proctors, are these actual assignments or people in reserve similar to athletic supervisors and chaperones?
They're in reserve, so it's based on the proctor schedule and the exams that are going to be running late. So,
Okay. And AP, is that on the weekend or during the school week?
no, they're during the school week.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the items here? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3C1, please?
Move it.
Second.
Winnie Ganesh was first, Chris Neeren is second. Any questions on this agenda item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3C2, please?
Move it.
Second.
Winnie Ganesh was first, Leslie Kretz is second. For agenda item 3C2B, we just need to make sure that when we approve it, that we're going to approve it based on the submission of the roster. And we do have the signed affidavit, but to make sure that we're approving it for once the submission of the roster and the signed affidavit as well, which there's a copy of that. Yeah, for 3C2B.
Well, and confirmation that the roster meets the guidelines. Right.
Yeah, so the submission of the roster that meets yes, they know in terms of it has to be the 75%. Any other questions about these items? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. Can I do 3C3 and 4 together?
Sure. Yes.
Can I have a motion for agenda item 3C3 and 3C4, please?
So moved. Second.
Carol Seehoff, Leslie Kretz, any questions about these items? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3D1, please?
Second.
Chris Naren, Caroline Fanning. Any questions about this agenda item?
Yes.
Caroline?
Okay, so going to the treasurer's report, the expenditure report. In many instances, it seems our encumbrances are really high and we don't have money in a lot of accounts. So I'm just hoping there's an explanation for it and to just give two simple examples to start is in, page 1, 1240, non-instructional overtime under the superintendent and the business official. It looks like we have $44 left in one account and 12 left in another. Is that really the case?
Yes, that's what we have left at this point. in
Just,
time.
I'm speaking to the mic, Mrs. Bossy. Thank you.
Yes, that's what we have at this point in time.
Okay, and just to clarify for the audience, this report that I have in front of me goes through till the end of last year. So it's only
Up to
July to December. So 6 months in, we only have $44 left in one account, 12 left in another. But then going through the entire report, and it's 22 pages long, so there's a lot to look over. Custodial overtime, page 3 to 4. I'm looking at that. We have nothing left in overtime and a lot encumbered. Is it really the case that we have nothing left in overtime at the halfway mark?
No. Actually, when an overtime occurs, we'll use the amount in the encumbrance. It is only when they use it that we'll release the encumbrance.
So that's what's interesting to me or confusing to me. So the report a month prior to this, there was only a little bit encumbered, anticipating that, okay, you have to pay it out. It seems like everything that was left in that budget line has been encumbered.
Yes. We do mass encumbering. And that occurred in December of last year, just to set the money aside. This is something that, because as we go through the year and as we come closer to the end of the year, then we know exactly what our fund balance will be.
I would feel okay with that if this was May, but it's only December. So to look to see how much money is available, it's like, why? To say it's encumbered to me, I think of an encumbrance as being like a check that you wrote that's out, that just hasn't cashed yet, like someone already worked it, but
It's more like your estimate of what it is going to be. That's the encumbrance when it comes to payroll. You have to guesstimate what you think the projected cost will be and set it aside.
okay, so you project we're gonna spend exactly everything that was in that line item?
Sometimes
with
we
nothing?
exceed it or sometimes we below it.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't have a
Oh,
question.
wait.
Oh,
No,
go ahead, you can finish.
Go ahead, Caroline.
sorry, I had the bunch flagged.
Okay.
Encumbrances for field trips. I thought we weren't taking field trips. So there was $47,000 budgeted that's been encumbered.
Is that the
That was
forty-seven
page
thousand?
20.
Yes, the 47,000, I guess, is what we had discussed the last month about routing software that we had to, the company sent us the bill late for last year.
Mhm.
So it's doubling up. This is for,
Field, but I'm talking about field
field
trips.
trip, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What we did was that we encumbered everything that is in that code in order to set the money aside, just like I said before.
But if we're not taking field trips, why did we budget $47,000 for it? And what's it encumbered for?
We have some field trip that is occurring. Some of them is for music trip. Yes.
Yeah,
That wasn't
re-
included in my 47. I know the music takes field trips, so when I tallied everything up, I deliberately left music out because I
Okay.
know that from NISBA and whatnot, yeah, music would have added 16,000 on its own.
Mhm.
I don't know of any kids that are taking field trips.
If we don't use it, we'll release it at the end of the year.
So then what the challenge for me then is that when I look at this, it's not clear. I want to see what money we have left. When I look at the encumbered column, I think, okay, that's money that's already been earmarked because it's definitely in use. It's in transit. Like there's a PO and we have to make sure that we cover our bases. To be told that, well, we might take, like, as far as I know, there's no outstanding POs for field trips, are there?
These are open purchase orders that we encumber because the reason why we do that is if we don't do that, we don't know how to project fund balance because it may occur, it may not occur. When we have contractual obligations like salaries, that is definite. It's easy to encumber. There are certain things that you have to estimate based on the prior year's experiences. And sometimes we get into that situation when it comes to items that are not specific.
So then, using the example of field trips, this encumbrance that was done in December was based on the previous years?
Yes.
Okay, but I would have thought, given all the, conversation, debate about field trips, that it was one of the things that we're told was being taken away to save money, then it wouldn't be in that line item, which is, something that happened a long time ago, and maybe I could have noticed this back in September, but it's a lot to go through month by month, and it feels like, we're putting money where we don't need it and then not having it available in places where we do need it. So, that was $47,000 that was earmarked for field trips that we knew we were never going to take. And I guess that's disappointing to me.
Yes, yes. And when it comes to transportation in particular, you cannot transfer anything out of transportation. Transportation stays on its own. So whether we take it out or not, it has to remain within transportation budget. Transportation budget is very unique. If we don't use it at the end of the year, we release it into fund balance.
I know, but I'm talking about
So-
field trips, not transportation. Like,
It's,
it's
it's,
still-
still- it's part of transportation.
Oh, it's under that code.
It's
Okay,
under
I understand what you're
transportation
saying
code.
now. Okay. I still think we didn't need to, if we knew we were going to cut it, we didn't need to put it in there in the first place last April. But okay, I'll let that go.
Yeah,
Thank you.
anytime that the 5,500, it's all transportation, yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Megan, do you have anything? Oh, and then Chris has something too.
So I had also questioned the field trip transportation last month. So I guess I was surprised when it still was sitting there just as it was at the end of November.
As an encumbrance?
As an encumbrance, yes. Because I thought that meant that we had $46,000 for transportation for field trips, which it sounds like we actually do have 46,000 because you're saying we can't use it for anything else but field trip transportation. So it
Exactly.
goes back to a question that I had asked.
Why didn't we take field trip?
A few meetings ago about the idea of one field trip per class, because I know the 8th grade doesn't have a field trip. The senior class probably doesn't have a field trip. It's just like the one day a year that students really look forward to. So we actually have $46,000 encumbered for field trip transportation that can only be used for field trip transportation. So I would like the board to consider it a little bit further. You've heard me say that before. So this appropriations report has a lot of markups on it. So I didn't know, I guess everyone has the markups. Do we want to have a clean version that goes on the website? Because this gets,
That's a good point. I would make sure that we have a clean, that goes, because I was reviewing it myself and I
I
didn't
could
know
tell.
that was the
Yes.
copy that you.
okay,
Thank
thank you.
Chris, you have something?
Yes, back to the field trip transportation. So just trying to see if I understand this correctly. So if you didn't budget for it and we then decided at some point this year to have a field trip, if you didn't already have it built into the budget, we wouldn't have been able to do it because you can't transfer the money in.
Yes. When it comes to transportation, transportation is one area of fund accounting where you cannot transfer money out or transfer money in. You have to stay within that transportation code, the 5,500.
So, but you could transfer it within the transportation. budget.
Correct, but you can't transfer any monies from, say, instructional code into transportation.
But then towards the end of the year, once you know 100% that we didn't need any transportation for field trips, then you can use it.
Yes, we can use it for something else or release it. And once you release it, it goes into fund balance.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. Rick.
Okay, so these reports go to December 31st, which is 2 months ago. And I know I've brought this up before. So the board doesn't really know how much is in everything in real time, right? We're in budget season. We have a meeting on Saturday, and we only really have these figures going back to December. So that makes it difficult for us. I guess, I'm not even sure how this is going to happen Saturday if we don't have real-time numbers. That's the first thing, right? Because this is 2 months behind. My next question is, we have a school lunch report from September and October. We're at the end of February. Why do we only have September and October?
School lunch is handled by, it's on its own. You would see when I do the presentation on Saturday, school lunch is on its own. True, we have a shortage of staff in the business office. And in September and October, we are still preparing to finish the prior year's audit. So it takes us a long time to get into this year's accounting because we have to close all the books from last year before we start the new year. And it takes us a long time to get into that because we have to, the auditor has to review it, issue his report, and then we roll it over and then continue from there.
Okay, my concern is that we have a budget meeting on Saturday and we only have the report up until September and October.
Yes,
So-
we did bring that up the last time.
Mm.
And what I had mentioned was that when the treasurer is preparing his report, one of the areas that he has to do is the bank reconciliation, which is cash. And those cash accounts come at the end of the month. So for December, he doesn't receive the bank statement until January. This is why it's about 6 weeks late. Cash is the most important account on the books, and he has to make sure that we reconcile the cash account every month, and it is accurate.
I hear what you're saying. My experience is I've always been a month behind prior to here. So again, and especially budget season, I think we should have the information. I have a couple of questions within the budget. Just to piggyback on what Caroline and Megan said, and Chris, if we have $47,000 that can't be touched, it's for field trips. Rather than put it into the general fund, we are here for students. Why don't we, as a board, discuss maybe implementing some field trips now that we have $47,000? So that's my first question.
Can I jump in?
Sure.
We can always release that encumbrance. Once there's no expenditure that is out there, you can always release that encumbrance to do the field trip if that's what the board chooses to do.
Right. So I hear what you're saying. I think just before that you said we have to wait till the end of the year, and if nothing's spent, then we could release it into the general fund. What I'm saying is if we have $47,000 encumbered, all of our children do not have field trips. We have $47,000 that's been sitting there. Let's try to give children field trips. Let's try to give the senior class their trip. I think they need a bus every year. Like, I really want to do things for children that directly impact and touch children.
I definitely agree with you as personally.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can talk personally now. I definitely agree with you. What I meant was that if any monies remain at the end of the year, that's when it goes into fund balance.
I
We are
understand.
not holding this money.
No, I
to
understand what you're
execute.
saying. At the end, if it's not used, it will go into fund balance. Totally understand it, but right now it's there. So let's use it on children. A couple of things, you know, I am concerned with some of the markings on here. When I see something circled and it says no record or wrong account, that makes me nervous seeing that. I agree it should be a clean version. There are a couple of questions that I have on here. So I guess, you know, some of these are salaries on page, let me just see what page this is. I guess it's page 7. And there was nothing budgeted, and then we added them. So we added, I guess, a kindergarten teacher, a secondary ESL, okay? But it, I know that you have an encumbrance here, but there's no, but it's not budgeted for.
Yes, and what happens is at the beginning of, especially at the end of last year where there was a lot of shift in employees.
Yes.
We come in, I come in with the payroll girl and we analyze everyone. So because when it comes to payroll at the beginning of the year, you have only 2 weeks and you have to pay people. So we come back and look at where everyone is. We get the building roster, we go through each and every one of them to make sure they are the right spot. And then we transfer their budget through the payroll process. So that is how it is done. And we have been keeping up with it. In fact, we are planning to come to work maybe this Saturday to look
Okay.
at all those things.
Okay, great. I just have a couple more questions. So on page 15, summer school program administrators, $13,000 was budgeted. We spent almost $122,000.
If you look at,
Available, negative $109,000.
we spoke about this about 2.
Oh, we didn't have the grant and we went ahead with it.
Correct.
Okay.
And we spoke about this, but
Okay.
if you look at the other codes, all the other codes in the 2330 in that budget are in the positive. So you have to look at all that in totality. And if you look at the next, the line by line budget coming on Saturday, what we did was that we decided to consolidate all those budget codes. So it's not spread out. It all comes from one code. You'll see that on Saturday.
Okay, and then just the last thing, did we add a new coach? There is a coach, it has under, oh, I'm sorry, let me tell you what page it is. It's 19. There's middle school coach, high school coach, and then there's just coaches, a line for coaches that's just over $7,600, but it's not allocated to the middle school, the high school.
Yeah, that was an error. We're going to correct it.
Okay, can we,
The 70s, yes, I know what you're talking about.
can we correct that when we put
Yes.
the correct version up
Yes.
there?
No, you
Um,
can't correct it now. Once the month is closed,
Okay.
you can change the numbers. You have to wait for the subsequent month to change it.
Okay, and then I just want to comment on the claims auditor's report. I know that we've been seeing like 4 issues with the claims auditor. This time it's down to 1, which is good, but it was approved and the PO was issued before approval. Thank you very much. That's it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3E1 through 3E3, please?
Second.
Carol Seehoff, Winnie Knestro, any questions on these contracts, and legal have you review the contracts?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3F1, please?
Move it.
Second.
Winnie Knestro, Leslie Kretz, any question on this agenda item? Seeing and hearing, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. Up to old business. Just a couple things under old business. The Board of Education had an opportunity to have a representative from NISBA speak to the board about superintendent mid-year evaluation, so that was informative. And from that point, the Board of Education will make a decision if they're going to do a superintendent evaluation retreat that would assist us as we move forward in the final year evaluation. There's also the opportunity to do an in-person evaluation, in-person retreat through NISBA. And that retreat would roughly be about $2,500, but NISBA is willing to work with us for a lower price because of the financial situation that we're in. There's also the opportunity through NISBA to have a virtual superintendent retreat where that cost will be $140. And with that cost of $140, we do have the opportunity to just have one person register, and then everyone could attend that particular virtual retreat. The only difference is that with the person retreat of $2,500 or potentially less, it will allow for a customized retreat for our school board and be reflective for any questions that we have. For the virtual retreat, it's open to all school districts. So I just want to give some information on that. And also that the policy committee did meet last night. And if I miss anything, whether Chris or Wendy could jump in, there were several policies that we did review. And that we are going to pass them over to legal for review. And I have to pull it out of my bag, but I know one was, hold on, I got extracurricular. The other one was bullying. Gotta pull it out, hold on a second, I apologize. It was.
Facilities.
It was a sample policy that came from with student harassment and bullying prevention and intervention. There was a policy, there was an exhibit, and there was a regulation. And at that point in time, the policy committee made a decision to just utilize that NISBA policy and pass it over to legal for review. Also, we reviewed the public use of facilities policy, and the cabinet's going to look at creating a regulation for that particular policy. And then we looked at the, as Wendy mentioned, the co-curricular and extracurricular activities policy as well. And we looked at the wellness policy, or well, not wellness, but, and please correct me, Dr. Talbot or Chris or Wendy. It was a mention that was brought up about something with the wellness policy, but really, we didn't really look at it. We didn't
Oh, the
change it.
wellness policy, we were just looking at, it just probably needs a readoption, but
Right.
the years were incorrect, embedded within the policy that needed to be changed.
Correct. And we were going to look at student and personnel electronic devices, but we
Yeah, if I could just comment on that.
didn't make it too far.
Yeah, on the cell phone policy, there's obviously a need for that. We had, I think we'll talk about that in a minute with the surveys had been sent out, and we received feedback from staff, and it's a real issue. And the governor has been talking about that, and she's been talking about possibly mandating a cell phone policy, which certainly makes it easier for districts if the governor passes down a policy. But either way, in preparation, we spoke about that, how we do need one. And the governor had mentioned that, one of her ideas was like cubbies for the classrooms. So one of the questions I had is, in preparation of what's probably going to come down the line for September, are we budgeting for that? And Dr. Talbot and Ms. Fitzwatsky said yes. So that was good news.
Thank you.
That's great to hear. I had a question about, I wanted to ask about cell phones, so thank you, and the wellness committee, so thank you. At one point in time, I also asked about, for the policy committee to try to prioritize an AI policy. And we also spoke about the social media policy. And the AI policy, the conferences that we just approved are looking at AI integration and planning in the classroom. So I wondered if the administrators that are attending those conferences can provide some sort of feedback to the policy committee in helps, and, to start that conversation of developing an AI policy for the district.
Thank you for bringing it up. I think NISBA has an AI policy as well.
Like
So
a starting point.
yeah, so I can always ask Lynn to contact NISBA for the AI policy, and we can put that on the list for when we go to do our next policy committee meeting. And you said AI policy and what was, and social media. Okay. Thank you. Anyone, Carol, do you have anything?
I'm just gonna mention, it's actually in draft form right now, but on February 3rd, the district-wide safety plan committee met, and it was Dr. Talbot, Dr. Wade, Olivia Bawazzi, Steve Baronis, Tom Donahue, Pete Iavino, and myself. And there were some mandates that came down from the state as far as verbiage changes. For example, shelter in place is now going to be called shelter. Lockout is going to be called secure lockout. Hold in place is going to be called hold. And we are going to meet again the end of March to discuss the rest of the draft and move forward from that point.
Thank you. Megan, do you have anything?
Yes, I have some old business.
Okay, okay.
Um,
Before,
I,
before I jump to old, any,
Oh, I
hey,
thought
this
we
is
were-
old, yeah, sorry.
I guess I'm also just to follow up on what Carol just said, I was a little confused because the Health and Safety District-wide Policy Committee, is that what you called that meeting?
Yes,
Okay, because I thought I was named in the current district health and safety.
district-wide
as well.
safety plan committee.
Right, I thought I was named in that, document as
I
well.
think I was the only one that answered the email, according to Dr. Talbot.
So there are two types of health and safety committees. There's one where the buildings meet regarding health and safety and they address security measures. And then there is the board-approved health and safety committee that, yes, that we met yesterday.
Right.
Was it yesterday?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, and so those two committees often, overlap. Some of the teachers who attend the health and safety meetings for the buildings also may attend the district-wide committee because we did expand those persons who were on the committee. Remember, the list kept expanding, but some of them were already on some of the building committees that trustee Seehoff is on.
Okay, okay. It sounds like I'm on the district-wide and I was not aware of that meeting, so I'm just
This was a
confused.
separate meeting, Megan. This was in regard
For
to
the
s-
plan
the
for
s-
next
the
year,
safety plan.
All right, so we'll clarify who's exactly on
I
which
just
committee.
thought my name
We'll
was on
clarify,
it.
yeah, we'll clarify it and make sure that if you're supposed to be attending the meeting, we'll make sure that you contact, so we'll
And
clarify.
I have,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's just another old business is the mascot, the status of the mascot. I know on February 3rd, I think, same day, did you held some mascot forums? I was wondering how, the feedback or attendance of those events.
The mascot forum was held here in the auditorium. We did have some in attendance. And that committee has formed a task force, which will be chaired by Mr. Farkas. And that next meeting is on March. Is it? The 6th, thank you. The next meeting is on March the 6th. We had student representation, parent representation. Our president came out in attendance and we had a great discussion. We went through the survey results. We got good feedback. And so the task force is going to take that back and they are going to walk out the next steps. Our deadline is April, so they are moving expeditiously. And the two high school students went back to the high school to develop some mini surveys to obtain more information that they would like to have, and they will be bringing that to the task force as well. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. My other old business is the status of the middle school construction RFP and the timeline for that.
The timeline actually came yesterday and we'll be including it.
Oh, in
We'll
the
be
Friday
sharing-
packet?
Yes, we'll be sharing it. with you.
Okay.
Yes, the timeline for, the bid and all of that.
Thank you.
Caroline?
Thank you, Lisa. I guess what I would like to pick up here, because I don't know when else to bring it up among the board, the trustees, is committing to a schedule and a tool for the end of year superintendent evaluation. Because we had a lot of missteps and miscommunication with regards to the mid-year. And now it even seems in question whether or not we're going to follow through, but we are legally bound to follow through for the end of the year. So, are we in agreement that we want to follow the NISBA tool, since it seems what we're familiar with?
We're gonna have to stay with the NISBA tool
Okay,
for this year. That's one. I think that what we do need to decide on is if we're going to do a retreat and have them come to do a retreat, so therefore the board can hear. Well, you already heard the feedback from NISBA, or we're gonna do it virtually. So that's the first step. And then and the
Well,
next part will be also the timeline.
okay. If we follow the tool, I printed out the page that has the timeline, because
Mhm.
this is where we seem to get tripped up. We know we have to do it, but
Mhm.
we keep, there has to be lead time for everyone.
Mhm.
So, and if you want, I printed copies, but
No, I have it in my packet.
Okay, can I propose dates for all the spring steps that have to happen, so we can put it in our calendar, so we know we're coming up on deadlines, so that all of us are on the same page?
Yeah, I think actually, you and I had spoke, and I spoke to you about helping to establish a timeline.
But,
Remember, yeah, so I think.
I think it's, I don't
So
think,
if you
can we
want
do
to
it
give,
now?
if you
with
want to
all of
give,
us?
if you want to give the dates, and that way the board can review the dates and
Okay.
make a decision if, no, I mean, determine if everyone's going to be available on those particular dates, because that's going to be the key.
Not everything has to be a meeting, it's just like,
I
when do we
understand.
have to get things
Mhm.
done by? So
Go ahead.
what I propose, and does anyone, do you guys have it in front of you? Do you want to see what I'm talking about?
No, just give the dates and. so-
Is it easier to email it?
Yeah, just, why don't you just email it to us, and that way we can review it and you
We're
look at-
allowed to do that
Yeah, just.
via email? Okay.
It's information.
All right,
Hmm.
then I'll leave that go. Another separate question is for Dr. Talbert. In the transmittal that you sent home on February 14th, you had the list of budget cuts, and I just wanted clarity with regards to the buildings and grounds.
So we're going to discuss it on Saturday, right? I'm sorry, go ahead. Dr. Talbot.
Is this everything that was cut?
Yes. Due to the long history of not having a routine maintenance program or the funding to get everything done, the Building and Grounds Director submitted a hefty list of what he would like to see done, and majority of it could not be included.
So what's printed there are the items that didn't make it.
Yes.
These are the items that did not
I
make
just-
it. Yes.
Sure, thank
a
you.
lot.
I just want, no, that's okay. I just wasn't sure because you had other sections in here of items that did make it. So I just wanted to understand. I'm just asking for clarification on the title. Okay. Can you please let us know, where do things stand, with regards to where kindergarten is going to be next year? Because at the meeting that you had at Northeast on February 14th or whatever date that was, you had talked about moving it, which sounds like a big project. So can you give us an update?
So we are currently developing the transition plan as to how kindergarten would move to Northeast if that is the end result. As we know, in developing the budget, we are about 7% over last year's budget, which means we have proposed a $124 million budget for the 25-26 school year. Northeast is housed in that budget. We're also aware that our transportation is being increased by $3 million. And so on Saturday, we will be peeling back the layers to see where we're landing in terms of closing that margin. We also talked about our governmental officials being very vigilant and supportive in trying to secure the $2 million that we're looking to cover the expense of Northeast. So in terms, I'm answering your question about
no,
moving
yeah,
kindergarten,
okay.
that is our intention and our goal
For next year.
for next year. But in April, we're looking to have definitive decisions because the adoption date is April 9th,
May 7th.
May 7th. That's the hearing.
That's the budget. Oh, yes.
We're adopting in April, right?
In April, I think
Yeah.
April 9th.
Somewhere around there. So we're in the process of developing that plan. We've even met with the leadership of ATA to talk about different strategies in terms of teacher movement. Teachers have had the opportunity to submit preference sheets. So all of those behind the scenes processes have been put in place. And the plan is being developed. We can't make any moves until the dollars are finalized.
I don't have any experience with moving grades from building to building. It would just seem to me that not having an idea until May doesn't leave you much time. Is that, like, has it been done before, or is?
We
this
have the
really-
concept of what to do, but the implementation of it, we won't do it until, it'll all take place after school ends. We've already met with Building and Grounds. They understand what has to be done. They don't have actual room numbers at this point because we've not finalized the particular staff who would be moving.
Okay, thank you. I can tell it's, and I don't, it could be for the best and that would be fine. I just think that if people are surprised in the summer, even a welcome surprise might not get a good response. Okay.
I just,
What-
and we have moved grades from building to building, and it was always done successfully over the summer. I've seen it happen on several occasions.
Can I ask
Thank you.
a-
I guess I'm just equally concerned about the communication so that teachers, parents,
Right.
you know, everybody knows it's coming and they can get excited rather than feel, whoa, that came out of, you know, nowhere and I wasn't prepared.
Right.
Okay.
Megan just wants to.
I'm sorry, I
answer-
just to build off of that, Dr. Talbert, I had reached out to you with a thought, and I just wondered if, where it went. I had looked at with the I think it was the revitalization strengths and weaknesses tool. It jumped out at me that the enrollment decreases by like 500, 600 students between Park and the middle school. And then I was thinking forward to, well, the middle school construction and phasing the middle school construction. And I reached out to you and I said, oh, it was just kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall, but what if you moved third back to Northwest and sixth back to Park to try to retain more students? Since there seems to be a decline in enrollment once the students transition to the middle school, and it would help to facilitate the construction if you had less students in the building. So I had never had a chance to follow back up with you, and I know you do a lot of planning, so I just was curious as we're talking about moving kindergarten, if those ideas were kicked around and where did they land?
They were kicked around and we went back to the origin of the Princeton model that was put in place here in Amityville for a reason. And we kind of talked that through a little bit. And in terms of the major movement, we did not seriously consider moving forward with the major movement of that. That would be multiple grades at once. But I think it's still something for us to take under consideration and give further thought to.
Wendy?
First I forgot to ask, can we get those presentations online? Can we put these online, the transportation and the iReady? Okay, great. I have a couple of things, but I just wanted to ask you something that you just said about Northeast, and I just want to see if I understand this correctly. You're asking elected officials for the $2 million, you're trying to secure it, you want to wait to see if it's finalized. And, you know, because you need the dollars. So I guess it's confusing. Do we have money to support Northeast as is? Or will we only be able to support Northeast if we get $2 million from an elected official?
We have Northeast written in the budget of $124 million for 25-26. We are at 7% above our budget from last year. It is in the budget. We will be talking about what that will look like in terms of tax levy as we continue to talk about some of the factors that will impact that. So are we relying on the officials? No, it's in the budget. We're relying on us to make the decision as to whether it will remain. Would we benefit from the 2 million? Yes, and it would make making the decisions internally a lot easier because it would decrease the delta by 2 million.
It would lower the tax cap levy, which I think we're concerned about because of the equalization rate right now. So it would be nice. Okay. Just for old business, I just have a question about the student reps. I think the election we talked about with the policies May. So is there going to be a rollout for March? When is the rollout going to be for this to inform the kids so the kids could get excited and talk about it and then all that?
So I know Ms. Stevens has been in conversation with Principal Cardone. You want to provide an update as to where we are?
We actually spoke about it this week. Dr. Cardone is going to meet with Ms. Wilshire, who's the student government advisor, and they'll come up with a plan for rollout. So they scheduled that meeting for next week.
Perfect timing. Let me just see if I have anything else old business. I think that's all I have for old business.
Chris? Chris, I'm sorry.
Yes, it was a meeting a few months ago. We had a student that came and spoke about the Warrior Awareness Club. I don't remember if it was a definite that it wasn't happening or if there was any conversation about it coming back. Reason that it came to mind is because it's they have a cash balance in the extra classroom activity report. So if their club doesn't come back this year, what happens to that money? Does it stay there for the following year?
Yes, it's a balance sheet item, so it carries over. Unless it is dormant for maybe 2-3 years, then based on auditor recommendation, we move the money over into student government. Student government is used as to catch it all for most extra classroom activity fund. So if there's a club that has remained inactive for a very long time, they'll recommend that we close it and move any balances to student government. But if this stays active for 1 year, but not the other, what we do is that we keep it open because sometimes it has to go through maybe 2 or 3 cycles before we close it.
And can I just get confirmation if it's possible for it to come back this year or not?
We did discuss that matter with the high school, and it's determined that they're looking forward to it for next year.
Thank you.
Leslie, anything?
No.
Any new business at all before we move on? Any new business?
Yeah, I wanted to bring up these surveys that we sent out. It was sent out, a culture and climate survey to all the schools. There was one survey for students and parents, and then a separate survey for staff. I know there was concerns about it being anonymous or not. I will tell you that it was anonymous. We have no idea who submitted what, but we do have the feedback. The feedback was invaluable and enlightening. The only issue I had is that we had asked for allowances for people to provide written feedback, and that was provided for staff, and it wasn't provided for the students and the parents or guardians. So we don't have any written feedback, but the written feedback from staff as a trustee, I found really enlightening. And I want to tell you that I heard you. There were some trends, and some of the trends were supplies, Chromebooks, extra cords, IT taking a long time, more valuable professional development. There was some curriculum feedback that they wanted more curriculum support. What else? Oh, cell phones was like really, really big. Discipline about it being even-handed. We had asked Dr. Talbot for a corrective action plan for this that I believe that you're working on or you're helping. And I will say, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but they might agree with this. It was so valuable that I hope that we do this every year because it really gives the staff the opportunity to communicate directly with us so we know what's going on, so we have a pulse on them, and also for the family and the students, although I think that there should be able to have written feedback for that. And hopefully, there were some dips in some areas that we can work with this data and try to, I think Dr. Talbert's working with the building administrators on this, right, Dr. Talbert? To really work towards more positive solutions for these things. And let me just see if I have anything else for new business. And that's it. Thanks.
Any other new business? All right, community input regarding non-board agenda items.
Good evening.
It's on. It's on.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I am Reverend,
Lynn,
We can hear you.
Lynn, just start the 30-minute, but reset it to 3 minutes up top. Stop it. And reset it back to 3. And then the mic is working, so just go ahead.
okay.
Just start over. Start the 30-minute and 3 minute. Once he starts talking, then start them both. Go ahead.
So good evening. I am Reverend Saber Mchun Guzi, and I'm the president of the Central Long Island NAACP. And I'm trying not to be weary, but this is kind of an exhausting process. So I have a question. Simple question, it's not complicated at all. And I'm sure all of you have the answer, all of you have the right answer to this question. And the question is in relation to the mentoring program being proposed by the 100 Black Women Organization. In terms of the insurance that they have been asked to provide, the question is, have other organizations that have programs with children in the Amityville School District, have they also been asked to provide the same level of insurance? That's the question.
You just pause it. I'm not sure if Dr. Talbot wants to answer it or if Legal wants to answer it.
We have one other organization who's working in our district. And their agreement was made a couple of years ago, and they were not required to have that same level of insurance.
So there's only one other organization that has a program or activities for children in this district? There's only one. Is that what you're telling me?
There's one organization that partners with us during the daytime. There are other organizations that may utilize facilities, but in terms of partnering with the district to provide services to students on site, there's one.
Okay, so the key word is partnering. So I was referring to using facilities. I didn't get the partnering part. So are other organizations that are using facilities of the Amityville School District, are they being asked to provide the same level of insurance? That's the question.
So I don't know if you want to answer it, Dr. Talbot or John. So the answer is no, but you want to clarify for John.
So, so that's not an apples to apples comparison in terms of use of facilities. Those those activities are under the scope of whoever is sponsoring that activity. They're only required, they are not within the district's sponsorship, so they're not sponsored by the district. So there's a different level of risk with associated with use of facilities as opposed to a partnership. So the level of insurance is different in terms of the view of NYSER. NYSER is the reciprocal that provides insurance to the district and other school districts. In terms of the level of insurance recommended for the partnership came from the insurance carrier. The recommendations for those organizations that utilize school facilities also comes from NYSER, and there are different risks associated with those activities, and therefore there are different recommendations from NYSER.
So when you say different risks, then that means that the risk of something happening to a child in one program is different than the risk of something happening to a child in another program?
There's a different level of the potential for liability. So with respect to students who are or children who are under the jurisdiction of a outside activity, let's say you have Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts using our facilities, those students are in the custody and care of that organization. They're not in the custody and care of the school district. We only permit the use of facilities pursuant to Education Law Section 414. So the risk to the district with respect to liability from an incident that would happen under the jurisdiction of the outside agency is different. With respect to partnership, those events and activities are within the scope of the jurisdiction of the school district, and they are under the supervision of the school district because they happen during the school day and they happen while administration and staff are supervising the students.
So this relationship is considered a partnership. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so it's a partnership in that the members of the organization would be on school property during the school day at a time when the students are under the jurisdiction of the school district. They're under the custody and care of the school district in the role of the parents.
So that being the case, then, so let me ask a different question. You provided, as the attorney, you provided an MOU to the 100 Black Women Organization, and the MOU that you initially provided did not have this higher level of insurance in it.
So
Yet and still it's a partnership, you're saying. So I don't understand. That was confusing.
So in terms of the recommendations for the insurance, the higher level of insurance came from the insurance carrier. So the insurance carrier had recommended a higher level of insurance when we sought out, when the district sought out the recommendations for insurance. So the insurance industry really across the board has been seeking higher levels of insurance and attempting to mitigate the risks associated with school district activities. And that's why the insurance is changing.
So is this something that partnership, is this a new concept for this district? I mean, because.
So it's not a new, there's a pre-existing partnership that was referenced by the superintendent. That contract is an older contract that was originally used as the basis for the contract that we're discussing now. But when we went out to check on the insurance requirements, we were advised by NYSHIP that the insurance requirements had changed. So the insurance requirements had increased for partnerships as recommended by the insurance reciprocal.
So the liability level is the same or different?
So the liability with respect to.
That other partnership organization?
Right, so the liability is determined by NYSER, by the reciprocal, and they've determined that in the current environment, the liability and risk for school districts is heightened, and therefore they are recommending greater level of insurance for those organizations.
For new organizations, but,
Right, for
so this
partnerships.
other organization is being grandfathered in, is that what you're saying?
They're not grandfathered
I
in,
mean-
but they will be, their contract is under review, and we will provide uniform level of risk for all such organizations.
So they will be asked to provide the same level of insurance as 100 Black
Right,
women,
their-
that's what
their-
you're saying?
Their agreement will be under review, and we'll provide our recommendations to the board. We always recommend that the Board of Education follow the recommendations of its insurance carrier.
So in terms of the
So
insurance.
Reverend Sauber, you just have to finish up because your time is up. Okay, and I
Okay.
want to make sure everyone has enough time.
Okay.
So just, okay.
But
so-
it does seem like there's a double standard. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but it does seem like it's a double standard. Whoever's making the standard, you're saying it's, it's the state, okay. Whoever it is, it's a double standard. And again, as I indicated, you provided an MOU which did not have this information in it. And
So
then
I'm
you
gonna
provide a
ask you,
second-
Reverend
Right,
Sauber, just to
so-
finish up and
so
give other
just
people.
to
come to the
clarify,
mic.
once
Thank you.
again, there's no double standard in terms of the prior agreements. The prior agreements were subject to a different standard. That was the standard a long time ago, or when that was the standard when the district entered into that agreement. When the district went out to its insurance carrier to get the updated standards, those are the standards that we were provided, and we will provide them across the board.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank
Hi, Margaret Truff, Amityville. So, Dr. Talbot, in November, I had sent you an email. Back in November, there was on the agenda with regards to consultants. And we had gone back and forth on email since November. And then in December, you had finally replied with a 5-line email, 5 bullet points of consultants that were being paid out. And the reason I had asked this question was because there was a $17,000 kitchen food service consultant approval that you were voting on. And I asked you what the consultant did for $17,000. And so I was curious about that. Also, I think within the same meeting, there was an unemployment consultant for $5,900. So then I'd ask, all right, well, we have these consultants, and I'm thinking, I'd like to know what this kitchen person does, because if there's a staff member or a leader within that kitchen for the district or for whatever, why are we shelling out 17 grand for something that could probably be done in-house? So that was my question to you. I was asking to be educated. I was asking to look at ways of saving money, because just in this meeting alone, you just raised the kitty $10,000 for the safety thing for, through BOCE. So 17 grand that I'm thinking, looking outside the box, trying to get something done in-house so that you're not shelling out all these consultant fees. My consultant question is non-related to any special ed. It only is above and beyond that, not touching special ed, just for the audience purposes alone. So my question to you is, we know about the financial. This thing is horrendous. We know about the financial. There was an extra $100,000 there that wasn't utilized because that gentleman left. I'd like to know, it's nominal, but it's money. I'm looking to get educated here. I'd like to know what a reading consultant does.
The reading consultant, I believe, was from the grant.
There's 2 of them here listed.
Yeah. Ms. Buanti, those were reading consultants from last year that were a part of a grant. And those are not here this year. If it was reported to you that they are here this year, then that was an error.
Okay, so that's out of the 5 lines you gave me, 2 of them are an error then. Is that what you're telling me?
Evidently
Okay.
so.
Then the food service that you voted on November 20th was $17,000. And then you gave me an HMB consultant food service paid $4,363. So is it 17 grand or is it almost 5,000? Or is it 17 plus the 5,000? And what does the food service position, what is the scope of work that they could do?
Okay. So in that same
That was part of my
email,
email, which it answered none of that.
yes,
the
I
way.
did respond to you and give
You
you a
didn't tell me what they
description of
did.
what the consultant did.
So, Dr. Talbot, I think maybe what could be done is, to maybe
We
just
provided her the
Right, just-
information
right,
that
so-
she
right, so
requested.
that's what I'm saying, if it's
I
provided, so
provided
she
a
can-
job description of the consultant.
I
Ms.
asked-
Buatsi, one consultant is the gentleman and the other is the third party that oversees the,
food service program. And they are paid from the school lunch fund. This is not a general fund expense at all. So
So then why is it included in an approval of $17,000? That
Yeah.
seems like it's coming out of the budget.
no, it is actually part of the school lunch fund. And it's paid from the cafeteria fund. And the reason why we have them is to make sure that we are in compliance, because just like we talk about the transportation RFP, we are required to do an RFP for the food service program. And we have to make sure the food service program is self-sustaining. And we have to make sure that there's compliance, the food, the contract that they bid for, they comply with every term of the agreement. And this is a very big help.
So-
And you know that when it comes to the food service program, that is one of the areas that we do very well in this district. So these companies come in to make sure that indeed, if they say they are going to serve fresh bagels, they are serving fresh bagels. Making sure that if they are supposed to serve salad, they are serving salad and it is fresh. If it's cold cut, it's from the right place. So those are the kind of things that they look at. And they also want to make sure that the food that we serve the kid have not expired. So they do a
Right.
lot
I
of
mean,
things here.
expiry dates can be done in-house, can they not?
They are
that's-
supposed,
that-
yes,
that's-
you,
that's an
you have a
inventory
point there.
task.
You have a point there. Every head cook is supposed to know their inventory. That's not the only thing that we are talking about.
I-
We have to make
I
sure that
understand that,
the food that they serve the kids is top notch.
But you just said 2 things. You just said it was covered by the food service bill, the 17.
Correct.
So why are you voting on $17,000?
Even if it comes from the food service fund, the Board of Education has jurisdiction over it, and they have to appoint those consultants as well.
So it doesn't come out of any budget. It comes out
No,
of
it doesn't come from,
because
it doesn't come from the general fund budget. It
There's
comes
no
from
way
the,
I'm
the,
agreeing.
the food
Yes,
service
you are.
program.
So please just finish up as I did with the previous person, so the
And
next
like,
person
and
can.
the $5,900 for an unemployment consultant, like what? Unemployment has consultants. If someone gets unemployed, they go to unemployment and they get the information that they need. You're paying $6,000 a year, but for many layoffs last year, so I guess maybe you needed it, but
So
as a
thank you.
rule-
Well, I'm just, to be
as a
consistent,
rule-
your time is up, so I have to let
as
the
a
next person.
rule,
Excuse me, your
unemployment will
time is
provide
up, so
any
you have to
information
move
they
on
need.
as I did with the last person. Thank you so much.
Well, if the email was answered in the context that I asked it, maybe I wouldn't have to be up here at all.
Thank you. Next person, please.
Jacqueline Stevenson. What time is the meeting on Saturday? That's my first question.
9 a.m.
Okay, because I don't think it's posted on the website. Maybe it is, but I didn't see it.
We could do an
There's a
announcement.
reminder that's going out tomorrow about
Okay.
it as well.
Regarding Northeast, I don't want to open up a can of worms, but then again, I do. So the 4010 status? Any updates?
4410 applications have been submitted. There has been some dialogue back and forth in terms of a final decision. We're still waiting.
Okay, so you're waiting on them to get back to you?
We're waiting on them at this point to get back
Okay.
to us.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about a committee. I'm not talking about the 402A, but I know, Ms. Johnson, at the last, one of the meetings, you had mentioned possibly having a committee just to talk about Northeast. So I like to look ahead to the future. So wouldn't it make sense to have a committee to talk about Northeast, not just for immediate needs, but for the future, so that when next year comes around, we're not, scrounging around, having forums, trying to figure out if Northeast is gonna stay open. Like a committee that can meet every month, every other month, of community members, administrators, to just have an ongoing conversation about Northeast.
I think that's something that, when Dr. Talbot did the forum, that was the beginning part of a continuation of the discussion in terms of Northeast. So she's going to continue with probably additional meetings and discussions on it.
Okay. Syntax, will not be doing websites after this year, is that correct?
Yes.
So what is the status of that?
Syntax will continue their web services through next year. We are looking to move to the Parent Square Company smart site to start our web services. Actually, they're in the process now. Things will be are being built behind the scenes. So we're hoping to move into our new system July 1. So Syntax will be phasing it out, but they will have it available one more year.
Okay. Madam President, you had mentioned about the superintendent eval a few meetings ago, that it would be available to the public.
No, I didn't say it's going to be available. If
You-
once the superintendent
yeah.
evaluation is, if it's signed off and agreed upon, then it's available to the public, and that's
Right.
that has not occurred.
Okay, so when will that happen?
I'll let you know when it happens, from last year, because last year's has not been approved and signed off, so therefore we cannot
Who
put it up.
approves it and signs off on
The superintendent has to review it,
it? Okay.
has to have a discussion with the board, and from that point,
Has
there's
she
the-
been evaluated? Has she been?
there was an evaluation that
Okay.
there was an evaluation that was done that represented the 24, 25, no, 23, 24 school year, and that was done in, correct me, like September, so when new members had come in. So
I don't know if that's available to the public.
that's
John,
what I
is
just
that-
said, it's not available to the public.
But I don't think it's ever available to the public, maybe through FOIL. I don't think that. that's
No, it's
something you
not
publish.
available. I think the only time it becomes available, there's a certain aspect of, you can correct me, John, but it's, once it's been approved by the superintendent board, then it's something that may be accessible to the,
But it's complete.
So in terms of certain parts of the evaluation, maybe it may be available
Right.
pursuant to FOIL.
Right.
But that would be dependent on a review of the file, of the
Correct.
document itself.
But why isn't it, we did this in September, why isn't it complete?
it has not been signed off on, and we can talk about it more, but it has not been signed off on.
Okay. There was a board member that expressed concern about the high school security. And I was just wondering if that has been followed up, meaning they went to pick up someone and they were able to get inside. So this was mentioned at a meeting.
I don't recall, I don't recall that, so we can
Well,
check
that
it.
board member can speak to that if.
I don't recall who it was, so we can go from there.
Oh, his incident that took place at the middle school.
No,
Yes.
The high school.
Okay, I'm not familiar.
I'm not too sure, but we can find out and let you know on it. So we'll find out.
That I
what-
wasn't able, I mean, I guess it would have been you or me. When there was a side door that was left open. So I was able to get in. There was a door that was left open on the side. When,
Your concern was that you were able to get in.
yeah,
there
that I
no-
was
there
able to
no
get in
Security around.
with,
And then someone said that they would be looking into it, so I'm just following up. But if,
So the incident was at the middle school. High school?
At the
High school. And it has been addressed since you brought it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think my time is up
It
because-
is up, yeah. Yeah.
No,
It is.
they were stopping it.
No, she was stopping it.
Yeah.
She's been stopping it, yeah. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I have a basic question. I am a member of a couple of organizations. I'm sorry, I'm a member of a couple of organizations, and typically there is an executive meeting before we have a general body meeting. And that executive meeting kind of mirrors what the regular meeting is going to look like. Can you share with me, because most of your audience is gone. In your executive meeting, what are you doing? That when you come for your regular public meeting, it almost doubles and almost triples in time. Your executive meeting, if it's about an hour, hour and a half, you're going over what you're going to share with the public. Right?
No.
No.
No, so that's
No.
what I'm saying. Please share, because it seems awkward that most of your audience has gone. You're talking about possibly now doing field trips for the children, right? Someone mentioned children, hopefully. How are you gonna plan a decent field trip halfway through the year? Your field trips should in some way reflect the curriculum or something that the children are learning. So now you've gone halfway through the school year and you're gonna say, oh, we're gonna send them on a field trip. If you're gonna book anything decent for the children, it would have been done a year in advance. Just help me understand that when you make your statement in the beginning of the year, no field trip, that's bogus. Because the children should be on some sort of field trip that's aligned with the curriculum that they're learning. It's wonderful to see the increase of the scores. Board, it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to see an increase necessarily year by year. It's going to take time. Time for the teachers to work on the curriculum, work with the children, their different learning styles, their needs. It takes time. The results are not going to be immediate. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you to the teachers. The survey that you did. It's nice to hear what the teachers have to say. I'm more concerned about what the children are saying and the stakeholders as far as the parents. The teachers are getting paid. Their results or their comments reflects how they feel about the administration, not necessarily what's going on. Let's be clear. Board, if there's other additional learning and training that you need to do to understand budgets, funding, whatever, please avail yourselves to it, because the back and forth of you're having to be explained or information has to be explained to you, some of the information, hopefully you will seek on your own to better understand.
So thank
It's
you. Your
after
time
10
is up.
o'clock.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. And the board does have to go back into executive session for another matter to discuss.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Chinguzi. I'm the first vice president of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Suffolk County chapter. I don't want to give anybody a false impression in the room. This process of trying to have this program to benefit the girls in the Amityville School District started almost 2 years ago. And we went through the process. We followed all the direction that was given to us by the district and the legal department. We signed an MOU. We submitted that MOU. That MOU was okay until we came to this body. Okay, and then we were then told that we were out of compliance. As a result of that compliance, we received another MOU, right? Which detailed in detail what the lawyer just said, that we needed to go and get a higher level of insurance. With the explanation here today saying that we're a different entity. Now, my question is, we have always been this entity. So why were we not told that this was a partnership in the initiation, which would have cut down on a lot of things, number one. Number two, it seemed that we came to a meeting here and then everything went to another direction without anything in writing to us as to why, other than a comment made in this body. They changed everything, right? So now we're hearing that we're not a partnership, we're a partnership, so we're different. There's no policy in the district that aligns itself with what you're saying that I've seen. So now I'm asking, because this is what the precedence that has been set, I'm asking for that. I want a definition from this board of what a partnership is in detail based on district set forth. And also all the things that were just explained to us again after a year and a half of going through this process, the lawyer is now telling us, which I don't really understand why it is we went to your insurance company when we had an insurance company and we met the guidelines that were initially given to us. And all of a sudden now we went to two other insurance companies who then, of course, any insurance company is always trying to keep their liability in check. So I'm asking for that in writing also from everything that you told me today, because based on what I see, there's a glaring inconsistency here. Glaring. And if that's what it is, then that's what it is. But now we are asking for it to be in writing to us, those things. Thank you.
May I respond? So with respect to the level of insurance for a particular organization is dependent on the risk assessment. The district pays the insurance, and part of that insurance program is a risk manager that's provided by as a service for NYSER, and NYSER will provide recommendations to the business office with respect to the appropriate insurance for a given activity. In this case, the MOU was provided to NYSER. They reviewed the program that was being recommended or under review, and the recommendations came back from NYSER as to the appropriate level of insurance. With respect to,
Excuse me, please don't speak out from the audience. Thank you.
so with respect to the insurance levels recommended by NYSER, they were strongly recommended to the district. Our recommendation to the Board of Education and the district is to follow the NYSER recommendations for a specific level of insurance. It is intended to mitigate our risks of liability. That is a very important topic for school districts, and to ensure that we meet the requirements of our insurance policy and we follow the recommendations of the insurance carrier, and that's what happened in this case. So with respect to the specific definitions, the specific requests, the response is that the review of the document was through the district's insurance carrier. The recommendations came back and the district followed those recommendations.
Thank you. So at this time, community input buzzer went off, so it's over. So I'm going to pass it over to the superintendent. It's come to an end, so I'm sorry, I have to close it here, all right? Because the buzzer went off before, yeah, I'm sorry, I have to close it off. Okay, yeah, I have to close it off. All right, go ahead, Dr. Talbot. Lynn, can you? Oh, wait. Go ahead, Dr. Talbot.
Superintendent's report. Just wanted to share with the board and those in attendance. We have been a part of the legislative program. I want to thank Ms. Stevenson, who joined us at the program. I think I'm going to need someone to help with the clicker. Can you go to the next? There you go. That's it. Thank you. Okay. That was sponsored by Western Suffolk BOCES. We had an opportunity to be in attendance with our Assemblyman, Mr. O'Farrell. In terms of our instructional leadership framework, our administrators have been strengthening their roles as instructional leaders. And as you can see, they're engaged in a pair and share. And we talked about how we can strengthen our instructional leadership capabilities. We also had a part of attending the shared decision-making team meeting at Amityville High School, there with Principal Cardone, and there's a parent, and there were a diverse staff. We talked about the code of conduct, academic data, school culture, student engagement, and parental involvement. While at the high school, we had the wonderful opportunity to provide a grand finale as our parade of champions made their way back to the high school from visiting all of the schools in the district before they left for their Orlando National Cheer Competition. We were also able to support our music and arts program with Dr. Fran Fernandez, where they acknowledged superintendents and central administration as a part of the Suffolk chapter of NISCAM, and we were able to support at the luncheon. The Amityville High School hosted a wonderful Black History show. Our students' talents were on display, and the Interact Club, supported by the Rotary Club, and Ms. Rankins, thank her for her coordination of a wonderful afternoon. Tonight, our boys varsity basketball team played Bellport High School in the quarter semifinals, and we won. Yay! We also want to acknowledge Eric Mahia Zavala, who's a freshman who placed 6th place in the Suffolk County Wrestling Division. Our scholar athletes are doing big things. I am particularly proud of the Edmund W. Miles Middle School administration, faculty, staff, and student scholars. They had a robust discussion and creation of a wonderful shared plan on how they can pursue some interests and pursuits that they discussed at the table. They had the wonderful opportunity of reviewing their data, their survey, other data sets, and they discussed student and staff concerns, school culture and climate, strengthening student-adult relationships, data decision-making, and is no top-down approach, no necessary corrective measures. It's robust discussion and collaboration that resulted in some wonderful, wonderful results. And so for that, thank you, M&W Miles, for taking things to another level. While there, we were able to visit some classrooms, piano classrooms. We saw some beautiful doors decorated for Black history, science in action, and our very own Ms. Stevens assisting students as we visited the classrooms. Northwest had a wonderful Black History Month celebration. The students did readings and poetry and song and dance, and we were glad to be a part of what was happening at our K-2 building. Northeast Elementary also had a robust Black History Month combined with Valentine's Day celebrations, and you can see all the joy on our little ones' faces. They also had posters around the school that showcased their principal, their school nurse, and a teacher. There were lots of posters, but that's just a sampling of how they were loving on their staff for Valentine's Day. Park Avenue Memorial School. We had a mid-year review with Principal Ed Playa, Mr. Duguay, we were so happy to see the progressive instructional improvements in iReady over the last 3 to 4 years. They talked about the factors that contributed to that success through teacher interventions, the instructional coaches, which did not make it into this year's budget. So it's something we want to discuss even again on Saturday, the impact that those positions had in terms of bringing improvements in ELA as well as math. And so as you can see, we had wonderful visits in classrooms at Park as well. The mascot task force meeting will be chaired by Mr. Evan Farkas. I have the next meeting as March 4th. Is it March 4th or March 6th? If someone can just confirm before we leave, and we'll leave an accurate announcement. The district-wide Black History Program is this Thursday, February 27th, 6:30 p.m. at the Amityville High School. There will be a special art and music wing tour for 7th and 8th grade parents and student scholars on Tuesday, March 4th at 7 p.m. in the Amityville High School cafeteria. And the Let's Talk Community Connections will reconvene on Monday, March 3rd at 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. at Park North Conference Room. We leave you with this quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in celebrating Black History Month. The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. Kudos to our outstanding administration, faculty, staff, and students for helping us to produce a great monthly report to our Board of Education of the marvelous things that's happening across the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Talbot. Just one thing that I do want to bring up, and we had some discussion with it in executive session, and I will bring it to the table, and I will bring it on the, just to state that for myself, I am a member of the 100 Black Women Organization, and I serve as the role as the financial secretary. And as legal had mentioned that its recommendation in terms of the type of insurance that we should get from NYSER. And so I'm presenting to the Board of Education, would we be willing to consider, even with the recommendation that, that legal provided, if we were willing to consider to have this organization provide this service to our district. So I'm asking the board members to weigh in as whether or not you are interested in considering this, despite the recommendation from legal.
I guess I'll jump in. Legal counsel advises against it. The insurance company advises against it. I happen to be an insurance and licensed broker. I had mentioned this. The insurance company is making a recommendation to mitigate any risk to the district. It is a tremendous issue if the district moves forward to approve something that council is advising us on, or our own insurance company is advising on. God forbid there's ever a claim, we would be responsible. I'm not sure that they would cover it. They probably wouldn't if they're giving the recommendation. We have public meetings stating these are the recommendations, and to go against them is not only putting the district at risk, I'm not sure that we would be indemnified if we are going against those recommendations that have clearly been put out to us. I certainly understand the frustration and the points brought up, but we have to file legal guidance and our insurance carrier's guidance, and we have to uphold our responsibilities and duties as elected officials and to the New York State Constitution and the United States Constitution.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. So,
Are we voting?
no, I'm just giving feedback. If you want to make an opinion on it, or if you want to just discuss it more executive session, we have to go in and come back out, then that's fine. Okay.
Go back in?
Yep. Yeah. So I'm gonna do a motion to go back. We have to go back into executive session for purpose of advice from legal counsel.
Move it.
Second.
Winnie Kneshels first, Megan Messon is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 7-0. Open at 11:33 PM. And I'm bringing it back up again in regards to the 100 Black Women Organization for them to come in to bring the mentoring program. I'm asking the Board of Education if we want to consider it. I heard response from Wendy Canestro early on in open. I just need to find out from other board members if you want to consider it, yes or no, so therefore we can put the issue to bed.
I think if there's an administrator, that's what Dr. Talbot said, right? That there's at all times an administrator in the building, in the room. That's a consideration. I don't know.
I would like for it to work, but it seems like too much of a financial risk.
That's why I just need to hear people's responses, so therefore we can move forward.
I'm inclined to follow the advice of legal and not consider it this time.
Okay.
I agree with, following, the attorney's legal advice also.
Okay.
Although I would like to have them come in, absolutely, but
That's fine. That's
Sa-
like, once again, go ahead, Caroline.
Same here.
Okay, fine. So that was it. The only person I heard from was Wendy, so I wanted to make sure everyone had their voice heard. So can I have a motion to adjourn at 11:35?
Second.
Chris Nearing is first. Winnie Canestro is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0.